ก็ชื่อปอยนะคะปอยดูแลในส่วนของ Community นะคะของ Hub บ้านนะคะแล้วก็จะดูในส่วนของ Corporate Innovation ด้วยเหมือนกันนะคะก็วันนี้ก็ยินดีนะคะที่ได้มาเป็นโฮสต์สปอนเซอร์สถานที่ให้กับอีเวนต์ในครั้งนี้นะคะคนแบบคึกคักมากเลยรู้สึกตื่นเต้นมากๆนะคะโอเค เขินจังนะคะแล้วก็ในวันนี้ไหนๆทุกคนก็มาที่นี่แล้วก็เลยขอพื้นที่สักประมาณ1-2 นาทีขายของหน่อยนึง นะคะก็มีน้องแม็กนะคะที่เป็นcommunity builder อยู่ที่สเปซของสีลมแห่งนี้นะคะจะมาให้ข้อมูลเกี่ยวกับพื้นที่สักเล็กน้อยค่ะปรบมือต้อนรับน้องนิดนึงนะคะ
ขอบคุณครับผมครับก็ที่ฮับบ้านสีลมนะครับเปิดได้6 เดือนแล้วฮะตั้งแต่เดือนมิถุนายนปีที่แล้วและที่นี่หลักๆก็คือเราก็เน้นห้อง corporate space ที่ท่านนั่งอยู่ตรงนี้นะฮะก็คือใช้จัดการสัมมนาก็จุได้ทั้งหมด160 ท่านครับแล้วก็มีห้องรับรองอยู่ด้านหลังนะครับพื้นที่ด้านหลังก็เป็น co-working space นะครับที่เห็นวิวสวนลุมสวยมากครับตอนกลางวันลองมาชมได้ฮะเปิดตั้งแต่ 9 โมงเช้าถึง 6 โมงเย็นครับผมจันทร์ถึงศุกร์แล้วก็เราเปิดให้บริการพิเศษวันเสาร์อาทิตย์ก็คือห้องประชุมใหญ่ครับแล้วก็มีห้อง private office อยู่2 ห้องนะครับตอนนี้ห้องที่ว่างอยู่ก็คือห้องสำหรับ4 ท่านครับถ้าสนใจติดต่อผมได้เลยครับด้านหน้าครับผม
ก็จะมีเพื่อนบ้านเป็น Tech Source นะคะแล้วก็เป็นVC นะคะจากสิงคโปร์อีกเจ้าหนึ่งนะคะห้องยังเหลืออีกห้องหนึ่งถ้าเกิดใครสนใจก็ติดต่อน้องแม็กได้เลยนะคะแล้วก็วันนี้นะคะเราได้รับการสนับสนุนนะคะฟรีโฟเบียจากยูเบียด้วยนะคะทุกคนมียูเบียอยู่ตรงนี้แล้วใช่ไหมคะไหนยกขึ้นมาหน่อยได้ไหมคะโอเคงั้นเราก็จะมาเริ่มเปิดงานนะคะก่อนที่จะเชิญวิทยากรขึ้นมานะคะขอให้ทุกคนนะคะเปิดกระป๋องเบียร์นะคะทุกคนนะคะแล้วก็ยกขึ้นมานะคะแล้วก็พูดชัยโยพร้อมกันค่ะชัยโยชัยโยชัยโยโอเคก็จะรบกวนเวลาแค่นี้ค่ะขอเชิญคุณคราวขึ้นมานะคะแต่ก่อนอื่นต้องเชิญพี่ปมขึ้นมาก่อนนะคะ
ก่อนจะเชิญเจ้าบ่าวเจ้าสาวเราต้องกล่าวอวยพรก่อนก็ขอสไลด์อีกหน้าหนึ่งครับก็โอเคใช้สปีกเกอร์กดสไลด์ให้นิดนึงนะครับโอเคขอบคุณครับก็นิดนึงครับวันนี้งานอาจารย์แบงคอกมิตอัพนะครับก็บางท่านอาจจะไม่รู้จักว่าคนจัดเป็นใครนะครับคนจัดคือกลุ่มลึกลับที่ชื่อว่าอาจารย์66ผมก็ไม่รู้มันเป็นใครเหมือนกันมันโผล่นะครับก็เป็นกลุ่มวอลันเทียก็ปีหนึ่งเราก็มาหลักๆมารวมกัน2 ครั้งนะครับก็ครึ่งปีแรกเราจะจัดงานอาจารย์ไทยแลนด์เป็นงาน Open Space คือไม่มี agenda นึกอยากจะคุยก็อะไรก็มาคุยกันนะครับแล้วก็ครึ่งปีหลังก็จะจัดงานอาจารย์ทัวร์แบงคอกอันนี้เป็นงาน regional จะมี international speaker โชคดีวันนี้คืนนี้เราก็มีระดับโลกมาเหมือนกันนะครับก็ปีนี้ถ้ามีแรงก็คงยังจัดเหมือนเดิมหรือใครอยากมาช่วยจัดก็ไปจอยที่กลุ่มอาจารย์ที่ซิกแล้วก็เสนอตัวเราก็จะชวนเข้ามานะครับก็วันนี้ก็จริงๆสิ่งที่สำคัญที่สุดที่ทำให้มิตอัพวันนี้เกิดขึ้นได้ก็คือฮับบ้าครับสปอนเซอร์แล้วก็ปรบมือให้ฮับบ้าอีกครั้งหนึ่งครับผมจริงๆจะบอกน้องปอยว่าตอนที่ตั้งมิตอัพเนี่ยตอนที่ชวนเข้ามาไม่ได้บอกเขานะว่ามีเบียร์ที่เข้ามานี่ไม่ใช่เพราะเบียร์นะเพราะว่าเขาอยากมาฟังมาคลาวพูดใช่ไหมครับ มีเบียร์ก็ดีนะครับก็แล้วก็วันนี้ก็มีคนที่มาช่วยเราไลฟ์คือกูโค้ดนะครับผมให้กูโค้ดหน่อยครับหลายๆคนมาไม่ได้ก็ไปดูไลฟ์แล้วก็ดูย้อนหลังได้ที่กูโค้ดนะครับก็ก่อนจะส่งไมค์ให้คลาวส์ก็แนะนำคลาวส์นิดนึงนะครับบางคนคุณเรียกพี่คลาวส์เนาะคุณคลาวส์เนี่ยก็อันดับแรกเลยที่อยากจะแนะนำคือเขาเป็นคนรักเมืองไทยปกติสเก็ตดูเขาเนี่ยที่ถ้าจะบุ๊กเนี่ย6 เดือนล่วงหน้าเป็นอย่างน้อยครับถึงจะมาแต่คลาวส์มาเมืองไทยติดต่อกันนี้น่าจะ5 ปีแล้วทุกปีเขาบุ๊กมาเมืองไทยก่อนตอนแรกเพราะเขาชอบเมืองไทยนะครับปกติมากับภรรยาแต่ปีนี้ภรรยาไม่ได้มาแล้วก็ชอบทำอาหารไทยด้วยก็เลยได้มีเรื่องคุยกันเยอะหน่อยนะครับคุณคลาสเนี่ยแบ็กกราวด์เขาก็อาจจะเหมือนหลายๆคนคือว่ามาทางเป็นโปรแกรมเมอร์เขาก็จบคอมไซจริงๆต้องเรียก Dr.Klaus ใช่ไหมเพราะ you got PhD in computer science นะครับก็เป็นโปรแกรมเมอร์แล้วก็ตอนหลังเขาก็ค้นพบอะไรหลายอย่างก็เคยเป็น CTO ของบริษัทซอฟต์แวร์เฮาส์ด้วยแต่ทำแล้วก็เจ๊งนะครับแล้วก็แต่ตอนที่เขาเจ๊งเนี่ยทำให้เขาได้ไปเจอสิ่งที่เรียกว่าอาจายกับคันบันพอเขาฟื้นบริษัทเข้ามาได้ก็มีหลายคนมาช่วยเฮ้ยทำยังไงเนี่ยเรามาช่วยบริษัทเขาหน่อยนะฮะแล้วก็คลาวส์เนี่ยเป็น ถ้าใครเคยได้ยินคำว่าคันบันมาบ้างอาจจะเคยรู้จักเดวิดแอนเดอร์สันคนที่เขียนหนังสือคันบันนะครับคลาวส์กับเดวิดแอนเดอร์สันแล้วก็อีก 2-3 คนเป็นคนตั้ง Lean Kanban University ที่เป็นคนให้เซอร์ติฟิเคตของฝั่งคันบันถ้าฝั่งสกรัมอาจจะรู้จักสกรัม Alliance Lean Kanban University ก็เป็นคนที่ให้เซอร์คล้ายๆที่สกรัม Alliance ให้กับ CSM นะครับแล้วก็คลาวส์ปัจจุบันก็ตอนนี้เขาเป็นที่ปรึกษาก็บินไปทั่วโลกบินไปสอนตรงนี้แล้วก็อาจจะไปช่วยองค์กรที่อาจจะได้วันนี้มี case study มาเล่าให้ฟังว่าทำไมทุกทีมก็ทำอาจารย์กันเต็มที่เป็นสุดยอดอเวนเจอร์แล้วยังเจ๊งอยู่ดีนะครับเพราะว่าอาจจะเป็นสิ่งที่น่าสนใจที่จะได้ฟังกันวันนี้แล้วก็ Klaus can you go to next slide just a little bit thank you ที่เห็นรูปสวยๆเนี่ยเป็นหนังสือเล่มใหม่ของ Klaus นะครับชื่อ Rethinking Agile ตอนแรกเขา publish ใน Amazon เยอรมันเป็นภาษาเยอรมันนะครับเมื่อเดือนตุลาปีที่แล้วนี่เองแล้วก็เป็น best seller อันดับ1ของ Organization Management ตอนนี้เป็น best seller อันดับ1อยู่แล้วก็หนังสือเวอร์ชันภาษาอังกฤษเพิ่งออกเมื่อไม่กี่สัปดาห์ที่แล้วนะครับแต่ว่าตอนนี้ในเมืองไทยยังไม่มี publisher แต่ว่าถ้าสั่งจาก Amazon ก็ชิปถึงเมืองไทยแล้วเหมือนกันนะครับถ้าสนใจลองไปดูได้ครับโอเค so the topic today is why agile teams have nothing to do with business agility ถ้าจะแปลว่าผมแปลเล่นๆว่าทำไมทำทีม agile แล้วบริษัทก็ยังเจ๊งอยู่ดีนะครับก็เดี๋ยวลองฟัง Klaus ดู without further ado I'll give the microphone to Dr. Klaus give him a warm welcome please
Thank you. All right. Thank you for introducing me. I didn't understand anything, so but it was for sure good. All right, yeah. So today's topic is rethinking agile. Why agile teams have nothing to do with business agility, and it's a kind of provocative title, right? So, but I don't say that teams don't have. I mean, I don't say that agile teams are not important. But if we only think in agile teams, the problem is that our business is not becoming agile. And that's what I will try to show here. So I think I have an hour or so time, right? Yeah, so an hour. And the idea is I will present some kind of case study. So there was a company, and this company, this organization, they were basically facing some problems, right? So what were the problems? Well, they were like, okay, our time to market is really crap. It takes forever until we can finish our projects. And they were like, okay, we need to change this, right? Because the problem is when your time to market is not very good, there's other problems tied to this. So in this organization, it was particularly, they were no longer proactive on the market. So they were more or less in the passenger seat and not in the driver's seat. So whatever competitors were doing, they were just trying to follow up, right? And that's not a good feeling because they used to be proactive, but now they no longer are. Exploit opportunities in the market. Totally no longer possible. When there's an opportunity popping up somewhere, the opportunity is long gone until they just set up the project. That's not a good thing, right? And I'm pretty sure you've heard about all these things like blockchain, right? Chatbots, artificial intelligence, all these new business models. We are no longer in the product industry. We need services now. And they were like, damn it, there is something going on this planet. And I'm pretty sure the future will take place. But if we are like we are today, it will take place without us. And they were like, okay, we need to radically change the way how we work. And what do you do today when you face these problems? We're going agile, right? Because with agility, we can address all these topics, no problem, right? So that's exactly what they did. They started an agile transformation, right? So how did this look like? Well, the very first thing, they were like, okay, we need to have cross-functional teams. I think everybody heard about cross-functional teams, right? So we want to remove dependencies. We want to have as much knowledge as possible in one team so that they can deliver very fast, right? So no more handoffs between functions, everything in one team, and they can deliver very fast. Cross-functional teams. They even got one step further. They were like, we are doing cross-functional product teams. This means one team is only working on one product. Awesome, right? Because again, we are removing dependencies. One team can focus on one product. That's brilliant, right? What else? They were like, okay, we don't want to be too dogmatic. So the teams, they can basically choose their favorite agile method, right? So no matter whether it's Scrum or Kanban, it's just a particular, some particular things each and every team needs to follow. So there are some minimum requirements, but in the end, the method doesn't matter so much, right? So what were the minimum requirements? Each and every team needs visualization. I think everybody heard about it, right? Visualization. Each team needs a board. We want to make our work visible. We want to see where the problems are. And the idea is whenever I go to a team, I see what they are working on. I see the problems. I can start a conversation and everything is just great because we see what's going on. So each and every team needs visualization. What else? Each and every team needs to do stand-up meeting. I think we don't have to explain stand-up meetings here, right? Short feedback loop in front of the board so that we have fast communication within the team going on and we can react quite fast. Stand-up meetings. And each and every team needs to do retrospectives. Retrospectives, also everybody knows, right? So we stop working and we think about, okay, what can we actually improve? Because we want to continuously improve, right? And there was one final requirement for the teams, and this was the teams need to do measurements. They were like, okay, it's good if we feel better, but in the end, we need to really see if it's better, the agile way of working. And they were like, okay, each team needs to do at least 2 metrics. One metric is throughput, and the other metric is lead time. So throughput means how much we are delivering. Throughput metric is, for instance, velocity in Scrum, means how much can we deliver. And lead time is how fast can we deliver, right? So this was basically the idea of this agile transition. And if you've read only one textbook about agility in your life, you probably think now, awesome. I mean, they really got it, right? So that's what you need to do. No matter which agile textbook you read, that's exactly what you need to do, right? Cool, so nothing can go wrong. Nice. So they basically, put this into practice. How did they do it? Well, the very first thing they came up is a transformation plan. So they set up a 1.5-year transformation project. Do you notice something? Well, that's exactly my kind of humor, right? So we want to become agile, and the very first thing that pops up in our mind, let's build a waterfall project, how to become agile. Maybe not a very smart idea, but we can talk about this a little bit later. But still, that was their idea, okay? We built this transformation plan to agility. What was in this plan? Well, we're talking about 600 people in this context, and these 600 people all needs to receive some basic agile training. I'm pretty sure you also heard about agility. Agility is not so much about the practices, right? Agility is a lot about the mindset. If all the people have the right mindset, then agility is working. It's not the practices, it's the mindset. The mindset is important, right? Mindset. So what they did is, they set up this 1-day agile mindset training. So, all 600 people were going through this agile mindset training, and then they could basically check the checkbox, agile mindset established, right? Again, I'm not sure if this is working like this, but okay, we can talk about this, right? So the point is, I really think agility is a lot about mindset, no doubt about it. But I'm not sure if you can establish the mindset in 1-day training class, like checked, right? But okay. What else? Well, They were doing the reorganization. Then, this was also part of the project plan, so team by team was more or less transformed to Agile. Reorganization means all the people were somehow being thrown up in the air. They land somewhere else in the organization in cross-functional product teams, and then agility was implemented team by team in this organization. This means all the Scrum teams, they received Scrum training, they had this Scrum Master training and product owner training. The Kanban teams, they were building their fancy boards, and they were having system design workshops, and so on, right? In the beginning, this whole transformation was supported by 16 external coaches, which is a good thing when you're a consulting company. Because, yeah, earning a shitload of money here, right? But, well, I'm not sure if this is so interesting for, or if this is the best thing what you can do for this organization. But in the end, if you take a look at this program, I mean, we're talking about 600 people just going through one Agile mindset training. If you package them like in 20 days packages, you can train a couple of days, right? And then all these Scrum, certifications, the Kanban training, we're talking about 2-day workshops. And then they need support in the beginning. They don't know how to run a stand-up meeting. They don't know how to run retrospectives. So that's really quite a lot what we can actually, stand in the, no, not stand in the way, where we can support them, right? Another good thing, they build up 11 internal Agile coaches. I think that's also a good thing to do, because what we see quite often is, as long as the external consultants are here, it's working. And when the external consultants are leaving, people are often like, oh, now we can switch back to normal again, right? But you don't want that your people are ever working normal again if you spend so much money here, right? So that's not a good thing to do. Yeah, so this was the idea of their transformation. After roughly a year, they reported that 80% of the teams were fully transformed. I kind of like this language, but yeah. So fully transformed. Are there Star Trek fans? No Star Trek fans here. But you know the Borgs from Star Trek, right? You are assimilated. How's it called? Assimilated. Yeah, assimilated. Resistance is futile. It's like this, right? You are assimilated. You are Agile now. Whatever. So 80% of the teams were fully transformed, fully assimilated. What does this mean? This means you could check quite a lot of these check boxes in the project plan. Yeah, so stand-ups is being done. We have a visualization, metrics. Everything is okay, right? So there was one checkbox, metrics. And they were like, okay, so if we have these metrics, well, let's take a look at it. What can we actually see? And well, then it was getting a little bit interesting. Let me put it that way. Okay, so what we see here is a so-called Scrum sprint velocity chart. Who knows the Scrum sprint velocity chart? Some people. So the idea is sprint velocity is a kind of throughput measure. So what we see here is a trend chart of multiple teams. So you don't see the data of only one team. You see basically aggregated data of multiple teams so that we can see how the Agile transformation for all the teams is working, right? So on the x-axis, you have the time axis, and on the y-axis here, you have the story points, I think they are called, from Scrum, right? And what we see in this chart is how the velocity is performing over time. And the expected result was to see something like this. In the beginning, okay, we don't have a lot of velocity, but then it's really picking up. It's flattening out a little bit here, right? Because, well, in the beginning we don't know what we are doing, but then we know what we are doing, so it's flattening out. But it's still increasing because we are doing retrospectives, we are constantly improving, right? So this was the expected result in this organization. The actual result looked like this. And this was like, huh? what's going on here? I mean, you could see in the beginning there was this ramp up phase, but then velocity was going down. And they were like, okay, that's not what we expected. So, well, but maybe it's because of Scrum, you know? Scrum sucks, Kanban is much better. So let's take a look at the Kanban charts, right? So here's a trend for the Kanban teams, yeah? This is now a lead time trend chart of multiple teams. On the x-axis, you see the time, and on the y-axis, you see the lead time, like how fast are we able to deliver. And the expected result was, of course, something like this. Lead time is dropping, right? Guess what the actual result looked like? Something like this. And they were like, huh, what's going on here, right? So this doesn't make any sense. So, well, the problem with these charts is we are comparing, we cannot compare the charts. That's what I wanted to say. So these teams, what we see here, the performance of, they did not exist before, you know? They did this reorganization. They built cross-functional product teams. So I cannot compare this to anything before agility because the team just didn't exist. Does it make sense? Yeah? So maybe this is totally awesome what we see here, but yeah, we just cannot compare it. There was actually one metric we could compare, and this was this one. This was the time to market of initiatives. Remember, that's the whole reason why they started this Agile journey. They wanted to improve the time to market of their initiatives because it was going up, and that's not good. And they expected to see something like this. It's going down because we are doing this Agile transformation, right? Yeah. Guess what the expected result was? And this really hurts because they spent really a lot of money. They invested a lot of money in this whole cross-functional teams and Scrum and Kanban and everything, and time to market was getting worse. It was getting worse. You invest money so that it is getting worse. And they were like, what the fiddlestick is going on here? This is not good, right? So this was basically the time where they contacted me. So they heard me speak about yeah, local optimization versus global optimization, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, well, maybe this is also happening in our organization. Could you please come visit us and spend some time with us and check whether we are doing it right, kind of. So at this point in time, I basically had the same knowledge like you guys here in the room now. Yeah. What I of course did, I built up assumptions. I mean, I don't know what's happening. I mean, you need to talk to them. You need to see what's going on. But this was exactly my, yeah, my stand of information that I have, what you now have. Now, let's have a very short, yeah, quick reflection break of 3 minutes. Turn to your neighbors, and just, yeah, build some hypothesis. We don't know the answer, but what do you think is the problem here? Okay? So just stick your heads together and think, what is the problem? 3 minutes, you see the timer here, it's ticking. This really works. Perfect. All right. So, yeah, these were 3 minutes. So, what are your assumptions? Let us hear one or two of your assumptions. Who wants to share an assumption with us? He wants. You volunteer him. That's good.
So we got a couple, but you just want one or two, right? I'll just pick. Maybe there's a waste in the system still.
Okay.
Something like technical debt, maybe still there.
Technical debt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe a wrong business hypothesis.
Mm-hmm.
Like the thing of something, then.
So wrong business hypothesis. They think of something and then they validate it and it's wrong. So that's why it is take longer to get to market.
Yeah. Maybe.
Maybe that's why. So
Yeah.
those are the tools.
Yeah. Okay. Who knows? We don't know it. Any other assumption? Yeah.
They just have a success model, just do a trial, and they just have a trade from 1 minute to
Yeah.
a weekend.
I would just repeat it. So they just tried it out, but there was no real success model behind it.
Exactly, yes.
Mhm. Okay, cool. What else? Any other assumptions? Yeah?
I think they started too big. So they implement Agile in the entire organization. So that might be too big.
Maybe better to start smaller.
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, cool. Any other assumption? I think here was another hand going up.
Maybe at first they were doing really well, but then people, they just fall back into their old habits.
Yeah, that's also a good thing. Yeah, cool. I think there was another hand going up. Oh, there was also another hand going up.
I think there's someone who's participate in more than one team, and that person is the bottleneck. And
yeah.
the other have to wait for him
There
along.
was still some dependencies.
Yeah,
Yeah, which create a bottleneck. Okay, cool. One more assumption. Who wants to share? Here's another one. There are good assumptions, yeah?
I think there's no real end goal other than being agile. So there's no like, they just want to be agile, that's it.
Yeah, and maybe, okay, I mean, they wanted to reduce time to market, but maybe this was no longer the goal they are trying to follow. That's also something what I see very often. Yeah, very good point. So we don't know, right? So we built some hypotheses, and I think I built also some of your hypotheses. They also popped up in my mind. But in the end, I just walked there and I was like, okay, maybe I just talked to some guys, right? So I spent roughly 1.5 days in this organization, and I had a conversation with a lot of teams, because agility was just teams there. There were a lot of agile teams, and yeah, well, I went to the teams and had some discussions. The first discussion was about dependencies. Yeah? So if we somehow simplify the boards that we see, and the good thing is each and every team had one of these boards, so I could just start a conversation quite easily, right? If I simplify these boards, almost all boards looked something like this. There was this backlog, then this is the stuff we're going to do next, then we are currently doing or developing this kind of stuff, and then we're done. The Scrum teams, it's a similar pattern. It was something like, this is the product backlog, then these are the items in the sprint backlog, then we are in the sprint, and then we are done. So the pattern is pretty much the same, right? There was one thing which was kind of remarkable. Each and every team had something like this. External waiting, right? So this means this team cannot proceed because they need some stuff from another team somewhere in this organization. Do you know something like this? Very good. So if we think this through a little bit, let's assume each and every team in this organization has a board like this. So if here is something going into this parking lot, like external waiting, there needs to be somewhere in this organization a second team, and they also have a board. And this, which is external waiting with team number 1, is basically demand for team number 2. So they somehow plan it to their sprint or whatever, then they work on it, and when it's done, we can unblock our external waiting and we can continue to work, right? So this is the behavior. So I started to ask the team, so what are your dependencies? Like regular dependencies, not once in a lifetime, but really all the time where you have dependencies. And I started to draw a, how's it called, a dependency chart. And the output was something like this. So there were actually quite a lot of dependencies. And here, on this picture, we're only talking about 8 teams. Assume you have 600 people in the organization. There is more than only 8 teams, right? So the question is, why are there dependencies? They are working in cross-functional product teams. Cross-functional product teams. That's exactly because you want to remove these dependencies. You want to have all the knowledge in the team. So why are there so many dependencies? Well, multiple answers to this question. One is, yes, they were working in product teams. That's good. However, multiple teams were working on one product. Yes, one team was only working on one product, but maybe there were 4 teams working on one product. So let's assume this team was only working on product 1, but the point is, this team and this team, they were also working on product 1. So, surprise, surprise, there are dependencies. Right? The other thing is the products weren't completely independent. I think if you are working in a little bit larger organization, you know it, something like this. So if you change something in this product, you need to change something in that product, and in this product, and in that product. So there are dependencies between the products. And in the end, we're talking about 600 people. I personally have never ever seen an organization with more than 30 people in knowledge work without any dependencies. So there's no doubt about it that we see dependencies in an organization like this. Let me show you a real dependency chart. That's from a South African financial institute, and what we see here is all the dependencies from exactly this cross-functional team. In the middle, this is just the dependencies of one team, right? You could now continue and go to the other teams and ask, and what are your dependencies? And what are your dependencies? And you could continue to draw this chart. And what you end up is with something like this. There is 1 or 2 dependencies in this organization, right? Not a good thing. And the point is, whenever I think of dependencies, there always pops up a picture in my mind. A picture of a keyboard. Let's assume our organization is a keyboard and we are in the writing business. So what we are doing is we are writing letters for our customers. Okay, that's what we do. So let's organize our organization. Team 1, 2, 3, 4. Team 1 is only pressing the number buttons, 1, 2, 3. Team 2 is only pressing Q, W, E, R. Team 3, ASDF, and so on, right? So now there comes the customer, and the customer wants us to write a love letter. Now we need to think how we can deliver this love letter, right? I mean, there's multiple teams involved. If we're talking about 600 people, your organization probably looks more like this. For each and every freaking key on this keyboard, there is a team hitting the key, right? So we have an E team, an R team, and T team. We have a D team. Each and every organization, of course, needs an A team. Without A team, nothing is going on in an organization. So you have all these high-performing, super cool teams in your organization. And now, let's assume you are somehow improving the performance of all these teams. And let's assume it's working. It's really working. So if the E people start to hit the E button, smoke is coming out of the keyboard because they are so fast. And this is working for each and every key on our keyboard. We have the best U team, we have the best G team, we have the best F team. Organizations like Toyota and Spotify come to us and see how we are using this keyboard because we have so freaking awesome teams. Right? How much faster can we deliver our love letter? Not really a lot, right? So the point is, in a system with dependencies, and okay, using a keyboard is a good metaphor for dependencies. it's not so important that I can hit each and every key very fast. It's way more important that I press the right key at the right time. This could be even a little bit smaller, but slower. But if I make sure that I hit the right key at the right time, my letter is finished much, much faster. We can transform this idea to our organizations. It's not the point that we are having high-performing teams, that each and every team is working very fast or whatever. I never got this idea of high-performing teams. It's way more important that we make sure that the right team is working on the right stuff at the right time. That's where the performance is in. Make sure that the right team is working on the right stuff at the right time, right? And there's a guy called Russell Eckhoff, I think it was back in the 70s or beginning of the 80s, where he said, the performance of a system is not the sum of its parts. It's the product of its interactions. What does this mean? If we take an organization apart to the single parts, we end up at the teams somewhere, right? If we are optimizing the teams, we are optimizing the parts, but the sum of the parts is not the performance. We need to optimize the interactions. What does this mean if we transfer this quote to agile organizations? Then we could say that agility of an organization is not about having, don't know, thousands of agile teams. Organizational agility can be defined by having agile interactions between the teams. So it's way more important that we agilize the interactions between the teams than that we agilize the teams itself, right? Make sure that the right team is working on the right stuff at the right time in an agile way. So we can, with short feedback loops, right? And this is something which was completely missing in this organization. This organization was like, we are going cross-functional. So we are tearing down these functional silos, right? And build cross-functional teams. But the problem is, if you don't think about the interactions, you move from functional silos to cross-functional silos. And that's not a good thing. So the point is, we need to tear down these walls. We need to establish interactions between our cross-functional or functional teams, right? Don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of cross-functionality. But if you are building cross-functional silos, this doesn't help, right? We need to tear down these walls. We need to make sure that there are agile interactions between our teams. And this is something which was completely missing in this organization. They didn't care about it at all. So we are in the problem domain. I will stay a little bit longer in the problem domain, and then we will switch in the solution domain, okay? So there are 3 more problems I'm trying to present, and then we talk about solutions. Next problem, I was talking about the flow, so how work is flowing or was flowing through this organization. As I said before, the good thing is there is a board, so I could talk about the people with the board. And what I did now is I somehow challenged what I see here, the flow. So I was like, okay, so you are developing, and after you are developing, you are done. This means the customer is completely happy and, oh, that's what I wanted to see. And they were like, oh no, it's not easy like this. You must know, when we are finished with development, of course, we need to do some integration work. Okay, that's good information to have, so let's come up with another column on the board, like waiting for integration. Okay, but then, when you integrated all your stuff, your customer is completely happy. They were like, no. Well, actually, after integration, we are doing acceptance testing. Okay, let's put up another wall, another column on the wall, so why not? But after acceptance testing, the customer accepted everything, the customer is happy. And they were like, well, in principle, yes, but in practice, you know, we need to release it. You know, there are release windows, and we need to wait for the next window, and then, yeah, you know the story, right? Well, I think that's good information to have. Right, so we want to improve time to market for our initiatives. That's good information to have. The good thing is, if we have something like this visualized, we can ask, how often does this take place? And the answer was this. They were doing integration on a monthly basis, and 4 times a year they were doing acceptance testing and releasing. So we want to improve time to market of our initiatives. I think I just found some levers we could pull, right? Well, but I wasn't satisfied now. I was more like, okay, this is the downstream, but what's going on here? So let's challenge this part of the board, right? So here's the backlog. This means here, the new vision product idea is in, and you start working on it. They were like, oh no, you need to know this is only the development backlog. Before we can start developing, of course, we need to do analyzing work, right? Okay, it's good information to have, so let's just put it on the board, right? So here's the product backlog, then we analyze it, and then we start developing it, because it's in the development backlog, and then we start developing it, right? So I was like, okay, and here in the product backlog, there is the new great and awesome idea. And they were like, well, no. Actually, our process looks more like this. So that's how we approach things. So we are something like a pool of new ideas here. Then we are doing a rough triage, so we are sorting out some ideas, yeah? Those who got approved, we can write a rough business concept of these ideas. This business concept is waiting for a steering committee. After the steering committee, we need to write a detailed concept, and then this detailed concept needs to be improved, and then we are in the product backlog, right? That's good information to have. Especially if we zoom out a little bit now, the process looks like this. And if we have a board like this in place, we can again ask, okay, and how often does it take place? And the answer was this. On a monthly basis, we are doing this triage. 4 times a year, the steering committee is meeting and approving or neglecting the rough business concepts. And once a year, we are approving the detailed business cases. I think I just discovered some levers we could pull when it comes to improving time to market. What about you? Yeah, there are some levers, right? So what was the reaction of this organization? They were like, well, development. Problem identified. So we put in Agile here, and we're so fucking Agile, it's just awesome. Well, no, sorry to disappoint you. I don't think that you understood anything, right? So maybe if we put in agility here in this box, in this process, right? So we probably have a waterfallish agile part in our process, an agile part in our waterfall process, right? And maybe this is agile software development. Fair enough. They are doing agile software development. Good. But this has nothing, and really nothing, to do with business agility. This organization acts lame on the market as before. Nothing changed at all. And this was basically my second finding in this organization. They only thought, agility on a very small portion of their value creation chain, and there was totally no end-to-end coordination going on. And well, not a good thing, right? So maybe agile software development, fair enough, but no business agility at all. Lame on the market like before. Yeah? Okay, finding number 2, I think it was. I think I need to speed up a little bit. I'm a little bit slow today. So we could talk about the strategic portfolio now. When we talk about the strategic portfolio, we need to somehow first talk about limiting work in our system. So this organization was limiting work in their systems. All the campaign teams, they were working with WIP limits. You probably heard about WIP limits, right? Stop starting, start finishing. That's a good thing. Even the Scrum teams, they were working with limited work in process, maybe not with an explicit limit, but with an implicit limit because they were having 3 weeks sprints. And in this 3 weeks, no more work could be added to the system, which is again something like a WIP limit, right? So for 3 weeks, our work in process is limited. And well, if you've read about WIP limits before, yeah, you must admit that WIP limits is the best thing mankind ever invented. You know, there's so much great stuff with work in process limit. Switching overhead is going down, cost of delay is going down, predictability is going up, risk is going down. We are faster, we are improving time to market. And the best thing about work in process limits is you don't have to believe it. There's a formula called Little's Law. So there's a mathematical proof behind it that this is true. Now, it also says time to market is going down. But time to market was going up in this organization, although they were working with work in process limits, right? So did they just falsify this mathematical proof here? Well, no. Because there is, let's say, the fine print when it comes to working in a limited system. And I think probably 99% of the organizations don't know the fine print of limiting work in your organization. So I brought it with me a little bit bigger. The fine print is, it's not about limiting any random item in your organization. You need to limit these work items where you want to see the benefit of WIP limits. You need to limit these work items where you want to see the benefit. What does this mean? This organization was working on initiatives. And how the Agile way of working is that you split these initiatives in something like epics. And they split the epics into stories, and they split the stories into tasks. Right? So that's what they did, and I think that's something similar, probably what you're doing, right? So we need to limit these items where we want to see the benefit of WIP limits. We want to improve time to market of initiatives. What do we need to limit? Initiatives, exactly. They were thinking agility only on the team level. I, as a team, what is my area of influence here? What can I influence? Exactly. Tasks, maybe stories. This is my area of influence, right? And now, that's the problem. So, don't be surprised if your time to market is not improving if you're not limiting time to market elements. The teams were somehow defending their sprint restrictions and their WIP limits with blood in this organization. So they really somehow defended the story and tasks limit, but they were still working on 1,000 projects in parallel. And surprise, surprise, none of the projects was being finished faster. And that's a problem, right? Where in my organization can I limit these initiatives? Somewhere up there, right? wherever up there is. For me, it's in a strategic portfolio. I hope each and every organization has something like a strategic portfolio, and the point is we need to agilize our portfolio process. We need to agilize our strategic portfolio, and this was completely not happening in this organization. Of course, there were some, Excel spreadsheets with some projects in there and stuff like this, but there was completely no management of the entire portfolio in an agile way. And this was my finding number 3. Agility was only a team thing, and strategic portfolio was not part of this. Does it make sense so far? Yeah? This was problem number 3. I have one more problem, okay? Problem number 4 is a little bit about the change process. So, what was the thinking of this organization? The thinking was something like, we are an ugly square, but we want to be a shiny star. Yeah, so we want to be this agile kind of, you know, this desired state, this awesomeness. But we are currently this, I don't know, this not so fancy square. So how do we, as a square, become a star? Their answer was, let's come up with a transformation plan. Let's come up with a project plan how we are transferring our organization from this state to the desired state. And I think that's not a good idea. If you want to become agile, agility already starts with the change process. You need to set up an agile change process. You cannot become agile by following a waterfall plan. Some organizations want to establish pull in their organization. And the first thing what they are doing is they are pushing a pull system in the organization. Surprise, surprise, it's not working. And the same is true for agility, right? So, yeah, transformation plan is one thing. The other thing is when organizations come up with something like a transformation plan, the very first thing that's in most of these organizations that they need to change in their plan is the org chart. Each and every change initiative starts with a reorganization. We focus on the org chart. Have you heard about the Spotify model? Yeah? Tribes and chapters and whatever, right? So that's something what we are trying to do. Well, this is Cliff Hazel. He used to be the tribe chapter lead of the Agile coaches within Spotify, which is basically the boss of the Agile coaches, kind of. And he's an old friend of mine, and I did an interview with him. And in this interview, he says, well, the Spotify model could work if you are in the same situation like we were 2012. Then it's probably working. But if you are a different company and it's no longer 2012 and you have different problems, it's maybe not a good idea to copy this model, right? So the point is we are somehow switching causality. We think Spotify is agile because they are using the Spotify model. But it's exactly the other way around. Because Spotify is an agile organization, that's the reason why they come up with something like the Spotify model. Today, they are doing it differently. Right? But that's the whole point behind agility. It's not about copying what someone else is doing. It's about finding the best way how we need to operate our organization. Adapt, agile, you know, it's about adaptation. We copy models. How cool is that, right? So doesn't make any sense. So usually we start with the org chart, but it couldn't be less exciting for me as a customer. As a customer, I just don't care about your org chart. I'm, for instance, Netflix user. My desire is wanna watch movie. That's it, right? So I don't care about your org chart. I'm interested not in the organizational structure. I'm interested in the operational structure. So there's something like this. We have an idea. This idea goes into our organization. This is somehow rooted through our organization, and in the end, we generated value for our customer. That's what I'm interested in. How do you generate value for me as a customer? Don't talk about the org chart. I don't care about this. So the point is, whenever it comes to an reorganization, to a change initiative, we start with a reorganization. And I don't know why. Maybe because it's visible. Before, I was going in this office, now I go in this office. So there's definitely a change going on, right? But I'm not, I don't care about this. We need to optimize the value creation to our customers, and that was not happening in this organization. They were focusing on the org chart instead of value delivery. Yeah, and these were basically the 4 problems. So no agile strategic portfolio management, no agile interactions between the team, no end-to-end management, and focus on the org chart. Does it make sense so far? Let's have another very short break, only 3 minutes. Which of these problems sound familiar to you, and what do you think is, okay? What do you think is the biggest challenge in your personal context? Time is ticking, 3 minutes. All right. So let's continue. Yeah. Any problem that sounds familiar to you? Everything? Everything is a lot. Okay. Is there a particular problem what you think in your context is probably the most important one? Huh? Is it more the portfolio? Is it more the interactions? You cannot do anything about it? Yeah, you can. Yeah. You can give my book to your boss. Because that's the story that's basically in the book, right? So that's kind of funny. So what we found out is that a lot of people are buying the book for their boss, which is really a nice pattern that we discovered, right? Yeah. All right. So what I've heard here, you know these kind of things, right? That's cool. So we don't only want to talk about problems. There are also some solutions, because in the end, it's not a rocket science. You know, it's not. Yeah, I mean, there are solutions to this. So let's start with the agile interactions. Remember, this was we need to tear basically down the walls between our agile or non-so-agile teams. It was the picture like this. So how did we solve this problem? Well, in the end, it was actually quite easy. So the problem was that, yes, one team was only working on one product, but there were multiple teams working on the same product. So for instance, if these teams are all working on the same product, of course, they have dependency. So what we did, we basically zoomed out from the team level and we built product boards, right? So we identified somehow which, or what do you mean, which teams are working on what product, like this, and then we basically locked these teams with the dependencies for one day in a room, and we were like, okay, how are you guys developing this product together? Come up with a board. Don't optimize organizational structure. Organize value delivery. A team is just an organizational structure. I, as a customer, I don't care about your teams. I care about value delivery, right? And if there are, I don't know, multiple teams involved in development, put these teams together and let them build a board. So the output was many of these or some of these product boards. And the point now is we see how these teams are developing the product together. And that's the cool thing. Yeah, and the point behind this is also that the board itself doesn't solve any problem. The board is a dead object. So the point is we need to establish these agile interactions that we've talked about before, right? So that's exactly what we did. So we were doing product stand-up meetings. Of course, the teams were doing their stand-up meetings, but we were also doing product stand-up meetings. And there were some products where, I don't know, 200 people are working on this product. These 200 people were having stand-up meetings. Of course, not 200 people were standing in front of the board, but the teams were sending delegates or representatives to a stand-up meeting. Then we were having a stand-up meeting in front of the product boards, and then the teams were, the representatives were going back to their teams, and they were having a stand-up meeting there. So we made sure that there's information flow across all teams, across the entire value creation chain. What else? We did retrospectives, not only on a team level. I see so many organizations who are really good in doing retrospectives on a team level. And that's a good thing to do. But that's not the one and only thing. Why don't we learn from each other, right? So why don't we have a common retrospective, especially about if we're working in the same product? So let's have a retrospective of how we can improve product delivery to our customers. That's what we established here. So we're having cross-team retrospectives. And that's exactly what I mean when I talk about agile interactions. We need to tear down the walls between the teams, and that's the way how to tear down the walls between teams. If you're doing something like this, the number of dependencies is going down. I need to be more precise. The number of unmanaged dependencies is going down. Of course, the dependencies between these teams are still there, but they handle it on a daily basis now because they are talking to each other, having stand-up meetings and having retrospectives frequently. So the number of unmanaged dependencies is going down. However, there are still dependencies between the products, right? So remember, this is when we change something in this product, we need to change something here, and we need to change something there. So what did we do with these dependencies? We came up with something what I would call an operational portfolio. What is an operational portfolio? We basically identified what are the products and services where there are the most dependencies. Yeah? And then we basically built boards where you could see the flow of these products with the dependencies. And now here we have product 1, product 2, product 3 on one board. And now we were establishing again, feedback loops in front of this board. This means we were having portfolio stand-up meetings. People from the individual products were joining a stand-up meeting where we were discussing these cross-dependencies on a weekly basis, not once in 3 months or so, on a weekly basis, right? In addition, we were also having retrospectives on this level. This makes sense. This is where you are basically improving the interactions between the teams. And I think that's highly important because it's not important that each team is working very fast. It's way more important that we make sure that the right team is working on the right stuff at the right time and that we address dependencies when they occur. And that's what you can do if you are working in a structure like this, right? So this was the first point. The second point was, you remember, this very long process they had in place. Was waiting for. Well, the solution to this is actually very easy. But the point is to get to this solution, it took roughly 1.5 years, even a little bit more. So what is the solution? The solution is something like this. We basically simplified the upstream and we brought business on board. Nothing easier than this, right? So this was a, well, let's say an old economy organization. So they were really somehow, they separated the organization. So there was an organization which was the business, and there was a second organization which was the IT. These were two different companies, right? And why should we talk to each other? God invented email, so there's no need to talk to each other, kind of, yeah? So, but that's what we basically did. So we brought business on board and we somehow simplified this entire upstream process. So now we are only having something like waiting for approval, which is just the rough business case, and then we immediately start to invest money, not in paper, but in product, right? Before we invested a lot of money in paper, and another paper, another paper, another paper, another concept. And the big thing was that this meeting was being held every second week. But we were maintaining our work in process limits back there. This means we were able to replenish, to start new work on a bi-weekly basis. This was done before only on a yearly basis. And now we can do it on a bi-weekly basis. And that's what agility, what business agility is about. That you have the ability to start new work quickly by maintaining your limits in the organization. I mean, starting work is easy, right? But if there are WIP limits on it, it's no longer easy, because this means we need to finish work, and only when we finish work, we can start new work. This is what business agility is about. It's a lot about the replenishment process. How often are you able to start new work by not overloading your organization? And that's a hard thing to do in the end. Yeah, and of course, we established feedback loops. The good thing here is there's no new meeting, because the feedback loops, they were already in place. So we were doing stand-up meetings, we were having these retrospectives, so just business joined us and we were having fun together, kind of, and coordinating the work together. So this was, yeah, the long process, the end-to-end management. Then, strategic portfolio. Remember, this was another piece that was missing in this organization. Agility was only thought through on the team level. Yeah, the solution is again quite easy. Build a strategic portfolio. Yay! And in the end, such a strategic portfolio is no rocket science. So in this organization, we were like, okay, what are the main things that we work on? And the result was something like, well, on a very rough theme, we are making money and we are investing money. That's not true for all organizations, but they were like, okay, we are making money, we are investing money. Making money means we are adding new functionalities to our products, we are launching new products, new services, all the great stuff that our customers are willing to pay for. Investing money means this is stuff that we have to do, we probably don't want to do it, and there's not really a customer value attached, but it makes sense to do it. Regulations, for instance, right? So I have to conform to regulations. I have to do it. Or all this stuff like, don't know, automation, test automation, process improvements. All this stuff are investments. I, as a customer, am not interested in it, but it makes sense that we are investing time and effort in this kind of things. This thing is called strategic portfolio, and there's a reason for it, because here in the beginning of the board, there was something like an information radiator. And in this information radiator, we basically put down the strategy of this organization. And when I say strategy, I don't mean the 200 pages McKinsey document. I mean something human readable. Yeah. So this is a list of bullet points, basically. And what we did is we derived business metrics out of our strategy. So if the strategy, for instance, says, okay, we want to enter the, I don't know, Indian market or something like this, we derived metrics out of this. What does this mean? If we want to enter the Indian market, this means the number of listings has to go up, the number of users has to go up, the number of whatever has to go up. So we derive business metrics out of it. And then we were like, okay, and how are we working on it? And the result was something like this. And the good thing now is, especially when we start work here on this make money part of our portfolio, we have to have an assumption which business metric we are turning. And if we have this assumption which business metric we are turning, this work is completely aligned to our strategy. So what we do with a strategic portfolio like this, we establish strategic alignment in our organization. And that's also something which is missing in a lot of organizations. If you go to some developers or whatever in an organization and you ask them, why are you working on this stuff you're working on? The answer is often, because I have to. So there's completely, there's the meaning missing behind the work. We don't know which strategic goal we are serving when we are working on this work item. It's just because I have to work on it. So the point is we bring back meaning to our people if we are doing something like this. We build up strategic alignment in the entire organization. And I think that's a very valid thing to do. And of course, you need to establish feedback loops on this level. You need to do stand-up meetings. You also need to do retrospectives. And you need to do strategy reviews like, okay, even the strategy might be smart to change from time to time. So you need to challenge this. When I talk about stand-up meetings here, I often hear, okay, we're doing stand-up meetings on a portfolio. We are doing it once a quarter. Well, I'm thinking of once a week. And it makes sense to have meetings also on this level on a high cadency basis, because otherwise the meeting just loses the meaning, because you're taking decisions, but the decisions don't hold for 3 months. The decisions need to be retaken after a couple of weeks. And that's the reason why it's also important on a strategic portfolio level to meet on a very high cadence. Yeah, this was number 3. We established the strategic portfolio. Number 4 was regarding the org chart versus value delivery. Well, in the end, that's basically what I've just explained the entire hour until up to now. Is we did no longer focus on the org chart. We focused on value delivery, and in the end, we just followed these 4 steps all the time. We always try to identify how are we creating value for the customer. If we know this is a service, this is a product, whatever the unit is where you are delivering value for your customer, the second question is, where are the dependencies within your value creation chain? Where are the dependencies between it? And then define agile interactions around it. It's easy like this, but you need to do it permanently, in each and every part of your organization. And when it comes to this, another important thing is we need to start up there. Top management shall serve as a role model for the agile transformation. I see it in too many organizations that top management is like, yes, we are going agile, so do it. This has nothing to do with us. I think it has a lot to do with top management, right? They are the persons who can basically, set the frame for the entire organization. Whenever I have the chance to start up there, this is the very first agile team in the organization. Top management is the very first agile team in the organization. Already Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in this world. So, and that's exactly what I'm awaiting of top management, that they serve as a role model and that they not only order agility, but that they become agile. And I think that's very important, because otherwise we are really investing a lot of money, but it doesn't stick at all. Yeah, and these are the 4 problems I've seen. And when I take a look at these 4 problems and I need to come up with exactly one conclusion, my conclusion would be, no, that's not. That would be my conclusion. Business agility is no team sport. Business agility is company sport. If we really want to act as an organization, agile on the market, you need to have the entire organization on board. And that's something else than agile software development. That's also a good thing to do. But if you, as an organization, want to act agile on the market, you need to have everybody on board. And when I say everybody on board, I think the next question is, where in an organization can we establish these agility? And there's a model what I call the flight levels, which helps me at least understand where in an organization can we become agile. Flight levels is a term from aviation. The higher we are flying, the higher the flight level. And if we are flying very high, we see different things than when we are flying very low. When we are flying high, I see a broad range of stuff, but I don't see a lot of details. When we're flying very low, I see a lot of detail, but somehow my vision is restricted. I only see certain parts of it. And the same is true in organizations. In organizations, we can become agile on a very detailed level, on a very low flight level, like on flight level 1. Flight level 1 is the operational level. Teams who are really doing the work, who are working actually, right? We can have agile teams, perfect. An organization usually has only more than one team, so we would see multiple of these flight level 1 systems in an organization. Often, it's not possible that one team alone is delivering 100% of the value for the customer. That's where we need to fly a little bit higher. That's flight level 2. Flight level 2 is a coordination level. We just make sure that the right team is working on the right stuff at the right time. So if the teams are the key on my keyboard, the flight level 2 system is the keyboard, where we make sure that the right team is working on the right stuff at the right time. So we can connect these flight levels together. And the cool thing is, from the perspective of a flight level 2, I don't care which method is being done on a team level. The teams can do Scrum, they can do Kanban, they can only work. That's also fine, right? So from a flight level 2 perspective, that's not the problem. We just make sure that the right team is working on the right stuff at the right time. If this is one value creation chain, like one service, one product, we often have multiple services or value creation chains in our organization. So we see multiple flight level 2 systems in organizations. Often it's also the case that there are dependencies between these products and services. That's where we need to build operational portfolio boards. We need to get these products and services together and manage the dependencies across products and services. That's still flight level 2 for me, right? We can also fly one level higher, and up there is flight level 3, which is the strategic portfolio. The strategic portfolio, what we're trying to do is we're trying to align the entire work in the organization to the strategy. We can, of course, connect these boards together, and in especially large organizations, we also see hierarchies between the flight level 3 systems. If you're, for instance, in multiple countries or something like this, so you have multiple strategy boards. Yeah, and these are the flight levels, and for me, they are quite useful because now I can start a conversation about if we want to solve a problem, where in the organization can we solve this problem? So flight levels is not about better or worse. So flight level 3 is not 3 times better than flight level 1. It's also a different problem. On flight level 3, my main problem is strategic alignment and prioritization based on the strategy. On flight level 1, it's all about delivery. If your teams are not delivering, you can take the best strategic decisions, your teams won't deliver. And the other way around is also true. You can blow in an infinite amount of agile fairy dust on the flight level 1. If you want to improve time to market, this won't help. You need to limit the number of initiatives in your organization somewhere here. And that's why I find the flight levels really quite helpful, because it's a tool which, you get the message quite easy across, and you can start a conversation what this means in your particular context. Yeah. And that's basically everything I wanted to say. Thank you. Oh no, it's just the books. Okay. So just the final slide.
Any questions? Translation got a book. Okay.
Yeah. Just one question at the strategic portfolio. So you want them to meet on a more regular basis, but their budget cycle is different. They have a different time frame. So usually if we talk about budgets, we're talking about yearly planning. So how does the organization manage this?
Yeah, so there's one thing, I think it's even odd that we are having a yearly budget cycle, although we want to become agile. That's the first thing we could talk about. And the other thing is, what you're doing here is you're taking decisions. So there needs to be decisions. So it's not like, okay, we decide on January the 1st, these are the projects and initiatives we need to deliver until end of December. There's always change going on. And that's what you need to do here. You need to constantly basically change the way how you organize your, how you run your organization, because there's always something popping up which does not stand in our yearly plan. And that's what they are doing here. I know it sounds somehow weird in the beginning when we talk about, okay, we speak on a weekly basis here. So there is there's a nice story from a German power tools producer, where we introduced all these flight levels kind of stuff with them, and they were like, okay, we will do this stand-up meeting on a quarterly basis, so 4 times a year. And I was like, weekly would be better. So we had some room for discussions. So it was different things, but the point is now they are doing it twice a week. And it makes sense because when you are meeting only once every 3rd month, you're taking decisions. The problem is that 2 weeks later, this decision is probably no longer valid, or one of these decisions. So we have to take another decision. If we have to take another decisions, the decisions are often being made, but not in front of this board. It's just 2 or 3 teams are taking a decision without considering the entire context. And the other thing is, which is even worse, we don't take the decision and wait another 3 months until the next meeting. And none of this is a very good thing. So if you have these meetings in a very long cadence, the value of the meeting is it just loses the value, because people are like, okay, we are here, but 2 weeks later everything changes. So I don't want to go to this meeting anymore. Yeah, and that's exactly what's going on in this organization. Twice a week. And it's really senior management together with their reports is standing in front of this board. So it makes sense. Yeah. Are there some more questions, or are you thirsty for beer?
It's more like a little bit follow up on that answer. So we're transforming the business, we're transforming the development, we're transforming the idea. How about the finance team? How are they gonna transform that?
I think it's pretty much the same like what we've seen here. So the example I was just talking about, this organization, we're really talking about the entire organization. And there's marketing involved, there's purchasing involved. You know, if you're producing hardware, purchasing is a big part of your business. There is sales involved, there's everything involved. And in the end, they are building boards on the team level, but usually on the operational portfolio level, you are coordinating it with the rest of the organization. So they meet, so they have their team board, yeah, the marketing team or whatever, but we coordinate with the rest of the organization on the operational portfolio level. And I think it's highly important that we need to do something like this. As I said before, business agility is organization sport, and finance and marketing and HR, they are part of this journey. And in the end, nothing changes. If you think it through, the flight levels, it's pretty much the same like a development team. Yeah?
I have a follow-up question.
Sure.
You need microphone?
Yes, microphone.
So I just follow up on his questions, specifically on the finance, because for me, I try to do this as well, and it's a struggle, simply because from their point of view, finance values stability, right?
they're doing good job when everything is accurate, when everything is stable, when everything follow a yearly cycle, because you need to file taxes and everything.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips on how do we win them over? Apart from beer.
Beer is always good, yeah. Well, I think the point is, if everything works perfectly for them, there's probably...
Sorry, because their KPI is that, right?
What is their KPI?
File accurate tax and, you know, accuracy, stability, right? So when we say, oh, we are the agent of chaos, they hate us.
But I don't think that agility has a lot to do with chaos. It also depends on how agile can a finance department be. So if you talk about doing sprints or something like this is totally nuts. It doesn't make any sense, because there's it doesn't make any sense. So for a finance department, it's maybe probably more easy if they are doing something like Kanban, where they have established processes, where they maybe are doing something like, I know some companies in Germany who are doing Kamishibai for highly permanent repetitive processes. And I think this is totally not a contradiction. So it's not agility is not about chaos, and especially in this area, they work completely different than product areas, and we need to honor this. They have repetitive processes. We need to define these repetitive processes, but we need to establish these agile interactions. I think that's the point, that we can basically adapt the way we are going. And the same is true for finance. Yes, they want to have accuracy and so on and so on. And they can get it because we build a Kanban board with them where all the processes are on there. Scrum is nothing for them. You need to choose the right method for the right part of your organization, I think. And then it's working. Yeah? Development teams, perfect with Scrum, especially when they're doing product development. Yeah? But it's not one silver bullet which fits everything for the organization. It's just my experience. Yeah? Anything else we could talk about? I think you're thirsty, right? So?
If not, I'll end with advertisement. Well, this year, Klaus, usually Klaus come to Thailand to have a Kanban class, right? But this year, we have a new class called Enterprise Agility, which is basically tell you how to do this thing. But it's just 2 days. It doesn't mean you can go but there's a lot of things on your context, but it's kind of extend on how Klaus take the problem to solution, how the flight level works, right? We ran the first class on last week, got 9 and 10, got a very good feedback, and we have another class on Wednesday and Thursday. Unfortunately, it's already full. But I didn't tell Klaus yet, but I'll invite him to be a keynote speaker at the end of this year and probably have another class on November. But that's the idea. But we'll see what happens. But that could help in who here wished that your boss is here today? Probably. You know, a lot of I guess a lot of us see here and there's like, whoa, that's good, it's cool, but well, we not what we can do, but there's a certain level that we can do. But if you look at the flight level, even though we can probably influence up a little bit, but probably not that high. But you know, even though we just improve in our own area, that's so much better. So that's the thing we can help. But anyhow, the class is cool. Hopefully you can join. You can join next time. And I got a request that there's a lot of beer left in the bucket.
You can solve this problem.
And I see somebody brought in like donuts and a big box of donuts, but the person is quite small. I don't think she can eat it all. So if anything we can share, we can have a conversation on the back if you still stick around. I think Habba will let us stay here a few more, 10 for like 10-15 minutes, so we still have some time. Okay, so thank you, Klaus, again for being with us tonight. Thank you, Hapa, for letting us use this very nice venue with the beer also, and thanks everyone for being here tonight. ก็ตบมือให้ตัวเองนะครับ
Thank you.
ครับ Oh, okay. Then thanks, Google Code, for live all the way to the end. Okay, thank you. ขึ้นโลโก้ให้แล้วครับ